Now let's come back to the home page and start actually testing the features that we used before. As we know, all of these links will actually make us leave this page and take us to other pages, which we will test eventually. But for now, I want to stick to this page and we're going to try the login or register in here. As we did before, let's try to log in with a wrong username and password. And if we click on login, you will notice that we actually have a parameter called act in here. Now, in other cases, you might not see this parameter in here, but the fact that we are logging in means that information is being exchanged and sent to the web server. And therefore, if you don't see that in here, you should intercept the connection with burp and then analyze what's happening, analyze the data that is being sent and modify it. But in our case, we already see this, we already see act is equal to login. So we already have a value in here, which is login, that we can test for all of the vulnerabilities that we learned before. And before I do that, I'm actually just gonna put something very distinctive so I can find it and see if this value that is being typed in here, if it's being reflected on the page somewhere. So we're typing in login and let me just type test. And I'm going to copy this term because I'm going to need to search for it. And I'm going to hit enter. So as you can see, the page loads normally. There's nothing weird in the page at all. But as we know, this might be injected somewhere in the page that is not visible in here. We're going to have to look at the page source to see it. So you could either right click and view page source, or you could inspect any element and that will reveal the page source. And from here you can do Control F and then paste whatever you're looking for. Now this will only search within the code, but you can see even at the start, before the code of the page starts, before even the HTML tag, you actually have a comment in here. And in the comment, you have whatever we injected, the login test is being inserted in this part of the page. So a better way of finding this would be to right click and view page source. And if you do Control F and paste it, you will find it in here at the very top of the page. Now previously we learned we can use double forward slashes as a comment for JavaScript. We also learned that we can use a hash and double forward slashes and others for SQL when we're doing SQL injections. And in HTML, you can also add comments using this syntax right here. So this would identify the start of a comment, and this will identify the end of the comment. And everything that you see within it is actually a HTML comment. And therefore, whatever you type in here will never be considered as part of the page. So similar to everything that we learned before, when discovering bugs, we want to break out of the constraint that we are in. And currently the constraint is the fact that whatever we're typing is being placed inside a comment. So if we wanted to break out of this comment and have this text being considered as part of the page, we're just going to precede it with these characters so that it is outside of the comment and that the comment ends in here. So I'm literally just going to copy this and we're going to paste them right before the value that I am injecting. I'm going to hit enter. And perfect. As you can see now, I have my login test is actually being considered as part of the page. So now that we are able to break outside of the comment and our text being placed inside the body of the page, let's try and see if we have a HTML injection. So to do that, as we did before, we're going to be putting a HTML tag before and after our text. So I'm just using the B tag in here. And then if I hit enter, as you can see, the text is bold now. So instead of being a normal text, now it's bold and we don't see the HTML tags that I inserted. And again, if I just right click and inspect this element, you can see right now it's actually being placed inside the B tags that I added myself. And therefore, because I am able to inject HTML code in here, that means I have discovered a HTML injection, and in most bug bounty programs, you will be awarded a bounty for this. So now that we discovered the HTML injection, as mentioned earlier, we always try to see if we can escalate this to an XSS. And to do that, we're simply going to replace this with a script. and we're gonna type our alert code in here. So let's say alert 2, and then finally we're gonna close it with another script. And I'm actually gonna remove this last tag from here because, as you can see, the web application is automatically appending the closing tag in here. And as we mentioned earlier, it is always best to do the least amount of changes and let the web application close tags for you, or close the comment, or just let it complete your exploit. So that's why I'm leaving the script tag open. You can obviously test with both, but that's why I'm doing it this way. So we're gonna send it as is. And as you can see, we have our alert being injected in here. But if we inspect the element, you will see that we have the alert on its own, and the script tags that we added are being stripped. So that tells me that this website is using some kind of a filtering that is stopping script tags from being injected in the HTML. But that's not enough to make me give up, because as we saw earlier in the XSS section, there is so many ways to bypass filters, and we even covered how to use the intruder to automatically go through a large list of tags and parameters and then exploits. We covered all of that step by step, so if you don't remember how to do it, please go back and revise that lecture. But what I'm gonna try, if you wanna keep this manual, if I'm actually playing with this, I actually would try a few manual things before I go to burp, because that will send a lot of requests and cause a lot of logs, and in many cases, I'd be able to get it manually. So a very common or fun tag that we can try is the image tag, because that doesn't require closing. And within the image tag, we can actually do the source, so the src, to something that does not exist. So for example, X, and then say on error. So whenever you get an error, I want you to execute some JavaScript code. And in this case, I want you to do an alert and show me number 2. So very, very simple. We're injecting an image tag. We're giving it the source of the image to something that is wrong, that doesn't exist. And we're saying, when that happens on error, I want you to execute this JavaScript code. Let's hit enter and see if this works. And as you can see, it is injecting the image, and the image is not loading because, the source that I gave it is wrong, which is X. But for some reason, it's filtering or removing the on error event that we have in here because we don't see it in here. So again, we covered how to do that with burp before using a cheat sheet, how we could build it one step at a time. So inject the image first, inject the source second, and then inject different events until you see the one that passes it. But if we're playing with this manually, just quickly, just to get a feel of it, we can see that the on error is being filtered, but we can also see that the web application is appending this to our image, to our payload. So I actually don't need to close this tag. And hopefully if I don't do this, the filter will fail. So let's do it. And perfect. As you can see, we managed to get the target web application to execute the JavaScript that we specified in here. And this is why manual testing is actually superior to automation. So using intruder and all that is actually really good because it's actually a hybrid between manual testing and automation. So once you start playing with the code enough, you can actually have your intruder submitting the exploits without the closing tag because you know that your target does not need the closing tag.